this. And I remember telling my wife, and my wife was like, well, we got to pray and fast about this for like 3 weeks. Little did she know I'd already filed my paperwork because I knew if I didn't, I would chicken out. And I would find a way to back out of it. But I filed my paperwork and I started this off with no experience in politicking or running for election. It has been a very interesting experience. And when I started it, I was really a reluctant candidate. But what I will tell you is that as I have gone and traveled, the other, basically the whole northern half of the state, which is, the area I have to cover, it's about 5 hour drive to the furthest distance in my district. And so we spent a lot of time on the road this last year. But what I found is that I've fallen in love with the people of West Virginia. By far, West Virginia's greatest asset is its people. They're largely a God-fearing people that are patriotic, love their country, they love their family, they have moral values, and they're people that that are tired. They're tired of corruption in their government. They're tired of the same old political establishment and political dynasties that have for too long had power in our state. And so when in multiple cases, I've gone to places where people have come up to either me or my wife or to other volunteers in my campaign and have said that they've been praying for God to raise up somebody, to stand up for our state. They've been praying for years that they feel like he's finally answered that prayer in having me run. And so I'm hopeful and I'm praying that God will, in fact, honor that prayer and that I do get elected, because without a doubt, I know what I will do in Congress. I can't say that for anybody else, but I know that first and foremost, I will seek God on everything that I do. And I know that God will chasten me if I don't. And and I've already started, I don't have the financial backing that the I would say the main opponent that I'm facing in the primary. It's an open seat for Congress, but my main opponent is the former vice president of the Podesta Group. So he was a lobbyist for the majority of his career. So he's got a lot of money and a lot of friends and a lot of people in high places that, have donated to his campaign. He's raised about $500,000. I've raised about 70,000. All of my donations have come from individual donors, and I have put 20,000 of my own money into my campaign as well. But, at the end of the day, I realized that, money is not everything. Money, you can have all the money in the world and it's not enough to win an election unless you don't have any opponents. But the fact is, I'm actually out there meeting with the people, talking to them, shaking hands, pressing the flesh, listening to them, and doing what I can to start working on their issues now. So one of the issues that came up multiple places was this issue of parental rights. And so everywhere I went, people were concerned about the fact that their daughters are being exposed to boys, in the girls' locker rooms. They were angry about these sexually promiscuous books in their school libraries, that basically depict pornography being given to their 10-year-old children. They were upset about the schools not allowing a child to get an education unless he's vaccinated with an experimental vaccine, things like that. So I sat down, got with a bunch of my volunteers, and we wrote a parental bill of rights. And then I submitted it to my constitutional attorney who is representing my campaign. And he, made some additional tweaks just to make sure that it conformed with the Constitution and with law, that it would stand up in court. And then we went down to Charleston and we lobbied it down there when they had a special session to, both chambers. And we got signatures and we got people on board, and we have a sponsor in the House and at least, enough signatures that it'll likely pass. And then in the Senate, we have I had 4 senators that offered to sponsor it, and several others that said they would absolutely support it. I think I've got, some people that have offered to co-sponsor it as well. So when it's all said and done, I took action, and where I learned that from was watching Trump. When he was running, before he even got elected, he was already making phone calls, working on deals,
Right.
and trying to bring companies back. And to me, I just saw that as, what a great thing to do. You earn people's vote that way instead of, trying to buy their vote or just demand, like with some sense of entitlement that, that they should vote for you. So I started with that. Then, as I was, and so we got that submitted. So then the next thing that kind of came up was in the northern panhandle of West Virginia, there's a lot of mineral owners, and these people have had some major problems that have happened as it results the results of some state legislation that occurred a couple of years ago. So I started holding meetings and meeting with mineral owners and talking to them and listening to them, and then bringing in some experts that, could describe and break down a lease and tell them, hey, look, this is the kinds of things that you should avoid. These are the kinds of things that you should look for. Then we started looking at legislation, and so we're working on some legislative fixes to submit to our state legislature, and we'll do the same thing that we did before. When we have something, we put it together, we go down and lobby it, but we also put out a press release, and we put out a press release that basically put it out there nationwide to create as much public pressure as possible on these guys to do the right thing. The fact is that I'm not taking any money from any of the oil and gas companies. However, my opponent, he's got 13 different energy companies that are donating to his campaign directly. This isn't individual money. This is money coming from PACs that are ran by those companies. So, I when I was in front of, 70 people at this meeting, I flat out read. I had the FEC file thing right there on my phone. I just said, let me read you a list of names of the companies that are donating directly to his campaign from their PACs. And I said, now, do you think he's going to care about, your individual mineral rights, or is he going to listen to, the lobbyists that are paying him and the donor class? And I said, I can tell you right now, I'm going to fight for you, because that's what a representative is supposed to do. I'm not representing, these individual companies. I'm representing the people. Now, obviously, I want to make sure that companies can succeed and that that they have the ability to make plenty of money and that they're incentivized to come to West Virginia, but not at the expense of the people. And I think that's becoming an important rallying cry. In fact, it's interesting because, West Virginia used to have a lot of Democrats, and now most of those Democrats have become Republicans, because even when they were Democrat under the J. Rockefeller, time period, it was mostly because of unions and because of that support of the people, that they were Democrats. The people in West Virginia, for the most part, even the many of the Democrats that are still Democrats, they're largely conservative. They're pro-life. They don't believe in socialism, but they do believe that, somebody's got to be looking out for the little guy. And what's happened is I've had a number of Democrats that have switched, parties to independent so that they could vote for me in the primary. And that's kind of an interesting thing. One of these guys is 90 something years old. He's been a Democrat for 70, some odd years. And for the first time in his life, he de-affiliated from the Democrat Party to vote for me in the primary. I find that pretty special, because I think one of the things we need in this country, and especially in the state, is we need people who are going to bring people together. I realize it's impossible to bring everybody together. There's some people that are so far out there, with far left ideas, that they're incompatible with, a Republican form of government. But there are many people, who have issues that they're concerned about. Another issue that I've taken on, and it's not one that probably many Republicans, dig into, but it's one that, it matters to the people. I got a call from a pastor who I met, who's become a volunteer in my campaign, and he mentioned to me, he said, "Do you know about Paden City's water problem?" And I said, "No." He says, "You might want to come down here and talk to some people." And what had happened was, Paden City is a EPA Superfund site. 30 years ago, they were dumping tetrachloroethylene. A dry cleaners was dumping that, and it got into the aquifer. And it's one of those forever chemicals that once it's there, you can't get rid of it. So I went down, and they had a valve, a bypass valve that had broke, and so they had an air stripper that was doing a pretty good job of like stripping this chemical out of the water as they pull it up from the pump. It runs air through it, and it's pretty volatile to the air, but when it's underground, it can't, it can't burn off or evaporate off. So they basically run it through an air stripper, and a bypass valve allowed this chemical to get back into the city water supply to the tune of 600 times the allowable limit. So it's carcinogen. It can cause cancer. It causes birth defects and all kinds of other health problems. And so the city, they just said nobody's allowed to use their water, and they said we'll provide some bottled water for you. You can come down and pick it up at the fire station. And then this was all said, by the way, on Facebook. Many of the people in this town don't even have internet, let alone Facebook accounts. Older people were left without running water for a month. You had people that did not have running water. They didn't bring in the trucks that have the showers. They didn't bring in the trucks that have the laundry services. They didn't bring in the water buffaloes for the businesses. So literally everybody in this town was suffering for a month because you had incompetent, people basically that were not making the right decisions. And to me, what was the worst thing about it all was that not a single one of their delegates came down. None of the governor did not come down. You didn't have any visit from our U.S. senators for West Virginia or from the congressman for that area. Nobody came down to go visit these people and talk to them. But I went down and I talked to the people, and then I put it on film, and then I published a video and put it out there, and then did a press release to basically bring shame on these public officials that basically left these people hanging. And wouldn't you know, within a couple of days, all of a sudden, they were able to expedite the test results and get them back so that people didn't have to wait any longer. But they still have a problem. So what, now their things are working again with the air stripper, but it's not removing all of this chemical, and the chemical plume is growing. So I met with some scientists last weekend. I drove up to Pittsburgh, met with a scientist that was up there who was in town for something else. I brought him a gallon of untreated water from their chemical plant, or from their water treatment plant. And so it's got the concentrations of, pre-air stripping, what the tetrachloroethylene levels are, and any other contaminants that might be in it as well. And I brought him maps of all of the aquifer, the tributaries, the flow charts, all of that, so that they have everything they need. And their company designs, they design enzymes that can eat these forever chemicals and basically make them inert so that they're safe, and it won't, it completely eats all of these chemicals, and these enzymes are safe for consumption. They think that they have a solution, but I'm working on trying to actually solve something that's been a problem for 30 years. And if they're successful, then this could solve problems for this same type of issue that's all over the country, not just in West Virginia. So I'm taking proactive measures. So no matter what happens in this election, I do hope and pray that I win, and I believe that I would be a good congressman, and I would serve the people well. But at the end of the day, no matter what happens, this has opened my eyes to the importance of being a servant to your community. And I'm already working on finding ways that I can help and engage and, work on things and do things for people. And if we would just invest in our own infrastructure here, we could actually become economically independent. But it's going to change. It's going to mean we have to change the way as a state that we do things. For one, the state has a habit of being a taker state. And so we tend to take more money than we pay into the federal government. And we get a lot of appropriations that come here between our two senators that we have. Um, some people look at that as a good thing. I don't. And the reason why is because every time we take federal money, it comes with their strings attached. And when you have a bad administration like the Biden administration, it means that your schools are forced to teach things like CRT and allow for transgender, kids to be in, the opposite sexes bathrooms. It means that you've got you're forced you get forced green energy crap thrown down your basically stuffed down your throat, whether or not it's good for your community and whether or not it's actually even green. It means that you've got basically more corruption because everybody, whenever there's federal money, I guarantee you, when you have federal money that goes down the chain and it goes to some company, there were already people lobbying the federal government to create those benefits and give those benefits to those companies. And so it's a big money laundering scheme, if you will. And we had that happen with a company called Form Energy here in West Virginia. The chairman of that company is Chelsea Clinton's husband. The main investors in that company are Bill Clinton, George Soros, Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg, Jack Ma, Tom Strayer, and BlackRock, and several other far left organizations are putting in a battery factory to build these iron air batteries, which they've never built before. We gave them $290 million in tax money, and then they got hundreds of millions more from the federal government. And interestingly enough, the Podesta Group, Tony Podesta, lobbied Congress to get 3 exemptions for this company, and this company was put in Weirton, West Virginia, and also Minneapolis, Minnesota. But they were given 3 exemptions. One of those exemptions give them basically allow them to not have to meet the EPA's water pollution standards. Another one allows them to be free from any kind of liability in the event of a toxic spill on either the Ohio or Mississippi rivers. And the other exemption they were given allows them to be able to source materials from China. Now, interestingly enough, that Podesta Group was paid $1 million to lobby Congress on behalf of Form Energy. Then it's John Podesta who brings that deal here to West Virginia. So isn't that interesting? He obviously is a shareholder in the Podesta Group, but yet he was the main guy bringing that deal to West Virginia. And of course, my opponent, who worked for the Podestas, he, interestingly enough, he had a role in that money being given. But he was very careful to try to make sure that his name wasn't attached to anything. But, I did a little bit of research and I was able to find out that he voted through his proxy to give $215 million of that money because he sat on the board of directors for the West Virginia Economic Development Authority, and his vote is recorded. He had somebody vote on his behalf, but it doesn't matter. They were voting as a proxy, so their vote is his vote. So this is the kind of corruption that I'm hoping to solve and basically expose. I'm not looking to go to Washington, D.C. to go join the club and be a friend of of these establishment Republicans. On that note, though, I'm also I do want to work with whoever I can work with to do the right thing and bring those things to our country and help our country get back to being focusing on America first and making sure that the mission that we have in America is to make sure that that we're taking care of our own first. One of the biggest issues on that matter is the border. and we definitely got to shut it down. It's unbelievable what's happening, but you have this current administration, which hasn't done anything to stop anybody coming into this country. And in fact, I would argue that they've and actually started with Obama. When he basically told people, and many people don't remember this, but he basically told people they could vote. It's crazy to think about that. But these people they're criminals. They're criminals. And when I say these people, I'm talking about the people in government who are allowing this to happen, who are basically creating an environment for this to happen, but also the people coming across the border illegally. They're criminals as well as the people who are facilitating it, the NGOs that are financing the massive trafficking of human beings, from South America all the way up to through Mexico. And in fact, they're not just coming from South America. We know they're coming from all over the world. So we've got major problems that we got to deal with and solve. Cybersecurity is going to be a major problem that we're going to end up having to deal with. We already know the World Economic Forum is warning that the next big thing is going to be some cyber blackout, right? So we can expect that these very evil people, who are running that organization, that they are in fact planning something like that. And I think it's going to be extremely important for somebody with my level of experience in cybersecurity, particularly in defending our national critical infrastructure, to be, in Congress, to be able to help with the policy decisions and help with, making sure that we're doing the right thing to protect our infrastructure. And then the other thing that I think is critically important, and I think this is probably more than anything else, probably the most important issue.
I'm still reporting from just outside the citadel of world freedom. Good day.